Well, here we are on our discussion, our lecture actually, on how to write an essay. One of the most important skills that you can ever attain. And I think that if I can teach you how to use history as a medium in which to learn how to communicate through an essay, you're going to do a great deal better in the rest of your education and in the rest of your life. And I will have felt that I have given you something of great value. Now, you should have received in class 3 different documents, though they are also available online, posted up there with this very lecture which you're listening to now. And so you can get them either by looking at the lecture or by looking at the paper which I gave to you in class. And so please follow along as I go through each of them so that they can be of some help and value to you. And you can write notes on them so that you will be able to master them and then go ahead and use them to write your essay. The essay questions are also going to be posted on this lesson so that you can begin to use the knowledge you have almost immediately by writing an essay. So here we go. The first document I want you to look at is the one entitled How to Build an Essay. The first thing you need to do is to determine the parameters of your paper. As it says, you may be making a claim and must give a supportive arguments necessary to establish your position. Or you may be answering a question. Then you must prove to the questioner that you know the material they are expecting you to master. This is the most common use of essays from now until at least you get out of university with your PhD, and maybe long after that, as you explain things to your employer or to your customers or to the government or to the people, whoever you might want to persuade or to convince or to give evidence to, in writing or in preparing to give it to them orally in organizing your thoughts. So you determine the parameters of your paper by making a claim that establishes your position or answers a question. Roman numeral 2 here says that there are 3 parts to an essay. There are always only 3 parts, but that does not mean there are only 3 paragraphs. Some places they teach you to write a 5-paragraph essay, but sometimes you only need 3 paragraphs. You never need fewer. Sometimes you might need 20 paragraphs, but there are going to be 3 parts. So it's a 3-part multi-paragraph format. And I like to think of it as an Oreo cookie with an introduction on the top and then the inverse of it, a very similar conclusion on the bottom, and then all the good stuff stuffed in between. And so I hope that you will always write double stuffed Oreos and will have a great time doing that. And you could put in all kinds of good, you could do the mint flavored. This time of year, you might even want to make a pumpkin flavored Oreo. I don't know. But it's got a top and a bottom, which are mirror images of each other, and a filling, which is the body of the paper. Remember, the filling can vary in amount or in flavor. Okay, the first part then is the introduction. You should have an introduction to your paper. This is what the introduction does. It includes the thesis, which is, here is what I'm trying to tell you. This is what I want you to believe. This is what I want you to know. This is what I want you to know that I know. And then the roadmap, a quick thumbnail sketch of what's going to be in the paper. As your professor at the university will always say, tell the reader what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. That's exactly what the teacher wants to hear. That's what the professor wants to hear. That's what your employer wants to hear. That's the way to do it. So number 1, the thesis or claim of the essay. Okay? If you are answering an essay question, answer the question. This should be a complete answer in itself, dealing with all the major ideas of the question or issue. So there are often more than one part to the question, so you have to be referring to the question And then so you have to be able to answer all parts of it. Okay? B, if you are answering a question, use the key words of the question in crafting your thesis or your claim. Your teacher would not have put those words in the question if they did not think it was important. So show that you agree with them by using those words and proving to them that you are answering the question that they have asked you. C, make sure your thesis or claim is as definitive as possible. Make sure it covers the whole subject, okay? Include reasons as well as assertions, but do not, D says, provide evidence or arguments. Evidence or arguments come later. They're for the body of the essay. And then you need to include a transition to the body. Each one of our sections and even each one of our paragraphs needs to have an introductory sentence and a transition to the next paragraph, okay? Also, in the introduction, you have to have a roadmap that presents the content and the order of the body paragraphs of the essay, which will contain the evidence, citations, and the warrants they support as you prove your thesis or claim. Now, you can just do that by the order in which you answer the question. And we'll give you an example of that as we go on to answer one of our essay questions. Okay. B, the body. This includes the paragraphs that prove the assertions of the thesis or claim of the essay. So if this was a short answer test, your introduction would have been enough to get you an A. But it isn't. You can't just answer the question, you have to prove why that answer is true with supporting paragraphs. They come from and are arranged by what we call the graphic organizer, one of the papers we gave out to you in class. And that must be constructed before the paper is written. But I'm going to tell you how to write the paper, and then we're going to go back and show you how to do the graphic organizer. And then I'm going to say B, remember to save the arguments, evidence, and citations for the body of the paper. Don't put those up in the introduction. So now to the body. I'm sorry I kind of flopped back, but I'll do it again. Includes the paragraphs that prove the assertions of the thesis and claims of your essay. The number of paragraphs is determined by the amount of arguments and evidence you want to present. And they are arranged by the graphic organizer, that's where I got lost, prepared before the beginning of the essay. This should ensure that your claims develop logically, one reasonably leading to the next, and combining to support the claim of the entire essay. Each paragraph should be constructed in the same format as the whole essay. A claim, topic sentence, the evidence, and then the warrant, which is the concluding sentence and the transition to the next paragraph. Now, here are some important points. Number one, follow the roadmap. Each major supportive claim must have a paragraph. 2, begin each paragraph with a topic sentence that presents the claim of the arrangement offered in the paragraph. 3, support each claim with evidence. This can be examples, reason, or citations. Now, in this particular one-page essay, you're asked to have at least one citation, one quote with a reference. You can have more, but you need at least one. But you don't always need to quote somebody. You can just give an argument, okay? Or you can give evidence, or you can give examples. And then 4, you have to include a warrant or a conclusion in each paragraph which explains why the evidence supports the claim and ties it into really what's coming next. And then 5 is end each paragraph with a transition sentence that moves your reader to the next supporting claim. This transition could be combined with the other elements of the paragraph. And then finally, the conclusion. It includes 2 parts, the summary, which sounds an awful lot like the roadmap, doesn't it? And the restatement of the claim or warrant. The summary should refer to the warrant of each paragraph and tie these arguments together to prove the warrant, thesis, or claim. So here's what I said, and then the mirror image of the introduction, then give the answer. Here's how I proved it, and here's the answer that I gave you in the introduction. Okay? Now you've got that down. Those are the elements for writing a multi-paragraph essay. 3 parts: introduction, body, and conclusion. Now comes the tricky part. How do I create that? Well, for that, I've given you this graphic organizer. This is an outline format. I used to try to do my outlines 1, introduction, and start to write down, and then I'd put 2, body, A, B, C, 3, conclusion. But sometimes I'd forget something, and I'd get scared, and then suddenly I came up with a suggestion from one of my college professors to do, he called it a bubble diagram, and now we call it a graphic organizer to keep everybody happy. And so I have gone ahead and kind of done a simple bubble diagram of one of the essay topics. So the 5th document that is included in your packet of information given to you in class and also included here in this remote lecture is the essay number 1. 3 possible questions. You pick one of them to write an essay on. I don't know how many times I've got students try to write a 1-page essay on 3 topics. Woo! Please don't do that. Pick one and write. Number 1 is about the geography of Mesopotamia. Number 2 is about the geography of the Nile. In number 1, you want to know how the geography led to a variety of nations and empires. In 2, you want to know how the Nile impacted the economy and the religion. And in number 3, you want to know the impacts and outcomes of the golden age of Greece and Athens and link them to today's world. So you need to know the outcomes and then you need to link it to today. Now this is a pretty big topic. I mean, you could deal with everything. You could talk politics, you could talk science, you could talk mathematics, you could talk architecture, you could talk art, but I'm choosing to talk about the idea of a hero, okay? The idea of the hero. So, in my graphic organizer, I know I only have 1 page to put my arguments in, so I'm going to start to organize my information. So here we go. On my sheet of paper, I begin by putting in the middle of it, right here under number 1, it's these 3 lines is all I put down. Now that isn't all I'm going to put down in my actual essay, but those are the 3 lines that will prompt my mind to write my answer, my introductory paragraph. And so the question is, discuss the impacts and outcomes of the golden age of Greece, Athens, and link them to our world today. So I put key to the impacts and outcomes of the golden age of Greece was the hero. I'm saying key to it is the hero, and then I might roadmap by saying the hero is going to be the person who establishes the need for justice, and that is what all of us want to be fighting for, is the right and what is good for other people as well as ourselves. I'm then going to say, and the hero also is an idea that leads countries to push towards justice and equality and growth and wealth and power. It leads to all kinds of excellence. And then I will say also that the Greek mind follows the examples of the hero even today in our world today, but those ideas from ancient Greece that flow into our world all reflect the idea of the hero. And then so that will be my 3 points. So in my roadmap, I'm going to know that's coming because I put them down. So I'm going to put down my answer to the question, and then I'm going to quickly point out the key ideas of my I have three of them, body paragraphs. And so I started to write down, I put 3 circles down, one for each paragraph. And for number 2, I decided to go back as far as I could to the Iliad, and I talked about Achilles. And so for this one, I put down Achilles' sacrifice for justice. And in the Iliad, this is the Fengels edition, the one that I read quotes to you out of. In the Fengels edition of the Iliad, on page 265, there is a quote. Now, I'm not guaranteeing I'm going to use the quote, but I put it down there in case I want to. And if I were writing a longer than 1-page paper, I might have more than 1-page quote. So I put it down there, and it's on page 265 of my Iliad. Okay, then I originally wrote down the idea of the Greek mind following, because I thought, well, I'll go from the Iliad to Plato, and then I'll sum up with the textbook. But then as I started doing that, I changed my mind. And I decided that the ideas in the textbook, which talked about the evolution of Greece before Socrates, should have gone in second. So paragraph 1 is right here, my introduction. Paragraph 2, my ideas on Achilles and the example he set. And then I'll say the example of Achilles was accepted by all the people of the Greek world as they strove for excellence and justice in their cities and in their conflicts and in their production. And for that, I'm going to say Greek states struggle to pass on the heroic idea. And remember, I'm shooting for impacts on today, so I'm going to talk about passing it on. And the key word, and your book beautifully describes that, is arity, which we talked to you about in class, which means quality. And this paragraph, which I could quote if I wanted to support me, is in the textbook on page 125 and 126. And I spent over an hour today getting your textbook set up so that you should be able to access it for the rest of the year. So I'll be working on that with you over the next 2 weeks, so you'll be able to get into the textbook and use the textbook for a citation if you want to. It's not going to be that hard. And if you can't do it on the computer, I've got a whole pile of them in here. I'll check one out to you. You can come in and use it. And not just for this one on Greece, but you could use it for Mesopotamia. You could use it for Egypt. And you could use it for the Greek world. And then my last paragraph, which is my crowning glory paragraph, and therefore the one that answers the entire question and ties it into linking to our modern world, I chose to use the trial of Socrates. Socratic ideas are driving forces of modern thought. That's how philosophy and reason are still directed today. In our world today, Socratic method and Socratic thinking are how we discover everything we do. And so I'm going to tie that all in the fourth paragraph, I've numbered it 4, but the third body paragraph. And so I'm going to say, the Greek mind follows Homer's example, and Socrates is the new Achilles. And on page 81 of the Apology, which is one of the dialogues in this book, The Trial and Death of Socrates, Socrates explains how he idolizes and looks up to Achilles, who was fighting for justice, just like he was fighting for truth. And we in the modern world, we fight for justice, and we also fight for truth, whether that truth is political or in beauty or in science. And we admit we can't find it, which Socrates would say, I only know that I don't know, but we're still fighting for it. We're still fighting for it today. And thus I have moved from Achilles to the whole Greek world in their effort to be like Achilles, and then they're passing that, the ball on to us, and I have my 3 body paragraphs, and then I go to my conclusion, and I can do what I just said. From the earliest days of Greece, the hero was the example, and the people of Greece followed the example of Arete and of their hero Achilles as they sought to build their cities and their governments and their ideas and all the things that they will pass on to us. And one of the greatest examples of that is our way of thinking about the world as Homer presents, or as Socrates presents it to us. Boom, boom. Now I have gone to my conclusion. So I go back to the center and I really restate my introduction. Okay? I say the impacts and outcomes of ancient Greek was the hero, and number 5, Western culture today seeks the hero and equals the impacts and outcomes. And these are both 1 and 5. It should read 1 and 5, because in 1 and 5, okay, in both the opening paragraph and the closing paragraph, I reiterated those ideas. So I get that all outlined in a brief synopsis in my graphic organizer, and then I can sit down and start typing away on my word processor or my typewriter or whatever, and the ideas will flow quite naturally, and I can tweak them, and in a relatively short time I can produce a 1-page essay. Now the other catch is I've asked you to provide at least 1 quote. So I have provided 3 possible quotes for mine. I don't have to use them. I can paraphrase, I can just say things, but for at least one of them, I have to give a quote. And so I could quote page 265 of the Iliad. I could quote the Apology, page 81. Or I could quote the textbook, page 125 and 126. This paper, which I gave you, tells you how to do a bibliography and a quotation. Bibliography and a quotation. So the first thing you're going to do is the footnote citation. And all you have to do is push the footnote button on your computer, and it will produce for you a place. It will put the number in and drop down to the bottom of the page, and boom, there's a place where you can put in your footnote. It'll be so much fun. So I think that the one I like the best of all of these is the Socrates quote. Okay, so I'm just going to use my own words on the other things. And so that's the one I'm actually going to make a footnote and a bibliography if I were writing my 1-page essay. If I were writing a multi-page essay, I would use all 3 of them. Because what does the citation do? It not only proves the argument I'm saying, but it gives more authority to what I say. Because I'm not just saying it, Homer is saying it, Plato is saying it, Socrates is saying it, and the writer of the book, the textbook I'm using in school, is saying it. These are all things my teacher has shared with me, and therefore I am showing that he is saying it or she is saying it, and that will make it important. So look at this. It shows you all kinds of citations. 1 author, 2 author, 3 authors, more than 1 author, an editor, all the way down, encyclopedia articles, magazines and newspapers, unpublished materials. Now you can go to the computer to get a quote, but if you go to the computer, you can't quote the computer. You can't give me an internet link. You have to find the book that the computer is quoting, and then you have to give me the information on the book. And we're going to start out with a footnote because that's the one you do first. So, say I wanted to footnote the Iliad. Okay, if you look over here, that's a 1 author. So I begin with the name Homer. If Homer had 2 names, if his name was Billy Homer I would put Billy Homer, but he doesn't have a first name. He's just Homer. So I put Homer, comma, the Iliad. Now, if I'm typing this, I'm going on a computer, I'm going to push the button and italicize it. But if I don't have a button to push and italicize it, I'm going to underline it. So that's the same meaning. No punctuation except for parentheses. New York, period. 1998, that's when this particular version of the Iliad was published, close parentheses. Then page, period, 265, close parentheses, Penguin Group, close parentheses. So I know the city of publication, I know the date of publication, and I know the page. I don't have to put in the publisher if I don't want to, but may as well. I'm going to use it again in a minute. Okay, these quotes, these footnotes, go alphabetically in the order, not alphabetically, they go chronologically in the order they appear in the document 1, 2, 3. The bibliography, which is on a separate page, goes in the order of the alphabet of the last name of the author. So among my 3 quotes, the second one I used was from Roger Beck and others under the more than one author format, which is the same just about as the other, but instead of just one name, it says Roger B. Beck, period after the B, and others, period, world history, patrons of world history, patterns of interaction, parentheses, Orlando, Florida, 2010, pages, PP, is more than one page, 125-126. And then the third one I do is Plato, okay, which was my paragraph 4, and again it's Plato, comma, the trial and death of Socrates, underlined, parentheses, New York, period, 1993, close parentheses, page 81. Notice that on the footnotes you have the page number, and then Heritage Press. Now on the bibliography page, it's a little different. So the bibliography, which is the first column, will give you an example, and you just translate your book, your authors, and those things into the bibliography page. In the bibliography page, the books are placed in alphabetical order by the last name of the author. So in the footnotes, Homer was first, but on the bibliography page, if I used all 3 of them, Beck, comma, Roger B, period, because it's an abbreviation, comma, and others, period, world history, patterns of interaction, period, Orlando, comma, Florida, and this is a colon, Hilton, Mifflin, Harcourt, comma, 2012. Okay? So it was published in Orlando, Florida. New York doesn't need New York, New York. London doesn't need London, England. But an unknown city like Orlando needs a Florida stuck on the end of it for some reason. And then again, Homer, comma, the Iliad, period, New York, colon, Penguin Group, comma, 1998, period. Notice there are no page numbers. If you want to know what page it's on, you have to go to the footnote. And then finally, alphabetically, Plato, comma, the trial and death of Socrates, period, New York, colon, the Heritage Press, comma, 1993, period. So that's what you have to have for your footnote and your bibliographical reference. And when your paper is corrected, we will check to make sure that you do even the periods and commas correctly, and then we'll move on to victory. So there you are. You have the essay questions, you have the how to do an essay, you have the graphic organizer, and you have the differences between bibliography and footnotes. The final thing I've given you is a score chart. It's 20 items that I look for when I'm scoring your essay. And later on in the year, when you score your own essays, you'll be looking, or score other people's essays, you'll be looking for these things as well. And we will talk about them in class as we get ready to give you back your essays and show you how you did. But you ought to read through this page before you write your essay so you'll know what the grader is looking for. Do you restate and answer the question and contain a roadmap? Are you factually correct? Do you give evidence that is quoted or paraphrased to support your claims? What is the number and quality of arguments? Are they adequate, or are you just pumping sunshine? Is the body following your roadmap? Is there at least one primary evidence quotation, and are examples that present actual people, things, and or events, like Plato, like Socrates? Are they actually in there, or you just say, well, some guy said this, or some people argue that? If you're talking about Mesopotamia, are you going to name some real empires? If you're talking about ancient Egypt, are you going to name some gods and pharaohs? Okay, then you're going to be okay because it's actual stuff. Then the format. Do you have an intro with a roadmap? Do you have a body that follows? Do you have a conclusion that restates? Do you have proper punctuation, capitalization, grammar, etc.? Do you, 12 is one we always get in trouble with. Do you have a proper footnote and bibliography? It must follow the style sheet, which I gave you. And then did you answer all parts of the question? For example, if you chose to answer the question on Egypt, do you talk about both the economy, the effect of geography on the economy, and religion? If you don't, you've only answered half the question. Half the question's 50%. 50% is almost an F, okay? 49 is, so be careful. And then style. Is it typewritten or anyway computer generated? You know what I mean, and printed out. Does it have a cover sheet that follows the instructions given at the bottom of the page of the essay? Is it a one-page essay? Does it go over? It shouldn't go over. Are you cheating and leaving the bottom blank? No, 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 no. Is there a separate page for the bibliography? And do you provide me the graphic organizer? Does it have proper margins and spacing? Are you squeezing it together, or double spacing so you don't have to write as much? Okay? Are there transitions from paragraph to paragraph? For example, in the Egypt one, I might say something like, all this prosperity and joy that came into the lives of Egyptians led to their having a special relationship with their gods. Conclusion, transition, introductory sentence to the next paragraph. The Egyptians found in their religion joy and happiness on earth and eternity. Boom, 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 and you're on your way. Okay, don't use rhetorical questions. Why should we care about the ancient Greeks? Don't ask me that question. Just tell me why we should care about ancient Greek ideas. And 19, don't mention yourself. I am going to explain to you how it is that the ancient Greek idea of the hero still reflects on our lives today. And I don't care if you're going to do it, just do it. And don't mention your paper. This paper will prove that the ancient Greeks, no, just say the ancient Greeks did this and we're in business. And finally, your arguments must be placed in chronological and logical order. Don't go jumping around and getting me confused and running me off the track. So there you go, a simple presentation on how to write an essay. You can listen to this as many times as you want. Make sure you take good notes on it, and make sure you write a beautiful essay. I've given you the due dates for the essay, and they'll be done in the last days. So we have 1 week to score them in. So they'll be 1 week left of the quarter before when your essays are due. So get them ready to turn in. I'll post it up there with this page when the essays are due. Get them in on time. Don't be late. That will give me a week to score them. There are over 100 of you. It's going to take some time to read them. So please get them into me on time so I can get that done. So thank you very much. And it's been great to have you in this class, even though you weren't here with me. Goodbye.